drop them into Facebook Ads Manager, ready to make that money. And this is just the beginning of the journey, because once those ads start to run, there are still more decisions to make. And we're not going to get into technicalities of media buying today. I'm not trying to get canceled, ABO, CBO, all that fun stuff. But we will talk about using the data to make creative decisions. And you can have all the opinions of what you think will work on an ad, but you don't decide. The market decides. They tell you if the ad is good or bad with their wallets. Our goal is to make ads that make money, not make us feel good inside. So there will be a lot of times that the ads that work aren't the ones you originally thought would work. It wasn't only until the data showed these were winners. Data is the most important part of content creation process, and it creates a feedback loop to improve the ideation stage. Welcome to another episode of In the Cutting Room. This is a new podcast that I'm putting together where we are, paying respects to the old way of making films. They used to have literal lines of film, actual film strips, cut it up, paste them together, and that's how you made a film. But there was stuff left inside the cutting room, and it is those decisions that make masterpieces. And that's what we want to kind of take and think about for ads. We're going to go behind the scenes of decision making and things like that in this podcast. So that's what we're up to. Today, though, we're kind of in the fourth part of our series where I'm just going through everything I know, everything about our process from start to finish. First week, we talked about ideation. Second week, we talked about production and shooting content. The third part was post-production and editing. And today we are actually talking about content. This is the last kind of part of the process. And then next week, we're going to kind of talk a little bit more in depth about kind of the philosophy of ad data connecting to ideation. So that's what we'll get into next week. But for now, let's jump into actual how do we understand your ad data? All right. First up, we're going to set up our ads report. All right. Go into Ads Manager, create a new report. This is what we've got. This is the report that I run. I'll break down what each one is, like what each thing is, but I'll just break down what the report is. Ad name, ad delivery, results, cost per results, amount spent, CPC, CPM, hook rate, hold rate, average view duration, unique outbound click-through rate, ads to cart, website purchase ROAS. 13 things. That's my report that I run. I would love to know what report you run, but that's what we run. And let's get into what each part is. What does it mean? Ad name. I like to go by the ad name so I can see the data from the ad level. People are looking at campaigns, ad sets. For me, when we don't do media buying, so we need to look at the ads themselves. So go by the ad name, super helpful. If you have a really great naming convention, also really helpful to kind of see what it is, etc. Then we have ad delivery, just letting us know, is it active, is it not active? That's super helpful because I'd like to know what was being spent on this month, but maybe it turned off or whatever. It's just good to know what's active, what's not active. Results, so the number of purchases this ad brought. Then I do cost per result, so that's amount spent divided by results. So this is the in-platform customer acquisition target or amount. Not that it's the target, but it's the amount. Again, before I get canceled on here about in-platform attribution versus Triple Whale or North Beam or all that stuff, I get it. I'm not saying you got to go by Facebook's in-platform acquisition. It's just a helpful kind of thing to look at for brands that have multiple channels and multiple things. you're going to look at it differently. Regardless, for the most part, you will be able to make creative decisions based on this report. If you want to run this report somewhere else, you can. That's fine. Doesn't really matter. Amount spent. How many ad dollars is going to this ad? I usually am sorting the whole report from highest spending ads from top to bottom. CPC, cost per click. This metric is helpful because so it's basically amount spent divided by the clicks. So how much did it cost per each click to get each click? This metric is helpful because you can see like it's more of an efficiency thing. Like I look at CPMs and CPCs. CPMs is cost per mille, cost per 1,000 impressions. So both of these are kind of like a health check to the account and the ad. If I see like a CPM double or triple, that's saying something. I'm not saying that like you need to live by the CPCs and CPMs. There's probably many school of thoughts. For someone like me who's just really focused on the creative, I am just looking at it as a gut check. Like, okay, it might have, some good metrics here, but if it's like double the cost or super inefficient to run, the brand's going to like turn that off. Right. So like just helpful to kind of see, not the thing that I'm like dying for. All right. Now let's actually get into some true creative data. Hook rate. This is a custom metric that you have to build out, but it's 3-second views divided by impressions. So of the people who viewed the ad, how many people watched the first 3 seconds? The second metric that is custom is hold rate. So that's through plays divided by 3-second plays. So of the people who watched the first 3 seconds, how many people are watching till the end? So the hook rate is kind of like, can you get people to watch the first 3 seconds? Yes or no? That is a percentage. And this is super helpful because like you could be like, oh, we should change this about second number 20. Well, guess what? People didn't get past second number 2. So who cares about second number 20 if they can't get past 2, right? So that's a good thing. Hold rate is like a retention metric. So like, okay, you got people to keep watch past 3 seconds, but how long? Like how many people are actually really watching till the end? This can really help understand if your ad is engaging, your script is engaging, your visuals are engaging. Average view duration is just the average time spent on watching the ad. It's amount of seconds. Then I look at unique outbound click-through rate. So this is a percentage. Depending, if you're running Meta Shops, you would want to change this. But if you're running directly to your website, you want to say unique outbound click-through rate. I look at ads to cart, so the number of people adding the product or products to a cart. This can help you kind of understand like purchase intent. Not that they're always going to buy right away, but it's helpful to kind of see like, oh, like how many people are thinking about buying. And then website purchase ROAS. So this is return on ad spend. So if you put $1 into Facebook and get $2 back, then you have a 2 ROAS. If you put $1 in but get 50 cents back, you have a 0.5 ROAS. Okay, now let me say this. I understand that attribution is difficult. I am not saying that you should use in-platform data. You can change this out for whatever North Star metric you want. You don't have to look at ROAS. That's totally fine. Different people look at different things. I'm not saying that I look at ROAS every single time. I usually am asking the brand, what is your North Star metric? And this allows us to see if what we're doing hits that target. Some people are looking at customer acquisition, whatever you want it to be. So don't come and flame me about ROAS. I just put it on there. It's nice to know sometimes, okay? But don't freak out. It's not the end all be all truth, okay? Let's talk about a good hook rate. I want to talk about some benchmarks for these metrics. A good hook rate is above 30%. 25 to 30, I'm like, pretty good. I would still want some changing, but 30 to 40% is like great. Anything above 40 is even better. If you are hitting that 30, 40 range, that means that something caught their attention and made them want to learn more. This metric is great because it can really help you understand if you're targeting the right customer based on what's being said or shown within the first 3 seconds. A good hold rate is anything above like 15% and up. If it's below 15%, that means like the retention of the video is not good. Honestly, like 20 to 30 is great. Anything above 30, I'm really, really happy with. You can get even higher than that, of course. You always want to be pushing for that. But like a good retention, if you're hitting like 20 plus, that's pretty good. And it's a great sign, like when the watch time is up, and it just shows that people are engaged with what the ad you're showing them. And it can also help you understand like if what you're saying and how you're talking to them is engaging. This can give you a very good insight on maybe how you could do it again. A good click-through rate is anywhere between 1 to 3%. Honestly, 1.5 at least. That means that what you're saying is getting people to say, hey, I want to learn more. And this metric can also really help you understand if the messaging and the visuals is compelling people to want to buy. Like, is it compelling people to like say, hey, I want to learn more about this? Because you can have great retention, great hook, great retention, and no click through. So like you do need to make sure that they are willing to take action. So this helps us understand, can we get people to take action on the ad? So let's think about how do these metrics connect to your actual content, your creative decisions. So the most important part of a static ad or a hook or a video is the hook of the video. So it's the headline of a static or the hook of a video. When you're looking at a video, who cares about second number 20 if people can't get past the first 2 seconds, right? So the hook of the video kind of sets the expectation of what's to come in the video. The same is true for the headline of a static ad. If I am starting to analyze an ad, I start at the beginning. I start at the headline. Did we get people to watch past the first 3 seconds? I look at the hook rate first. So when I'm looking at my report, I'm also kind of looking at it. So I'm looking at it left to right. I'm doing it in that order because it's almost like the video starts at second 0 and it goes on left to right. So it's the same way you can kind of overlay the data onto the video. Are we getting a good hook rate? If we're not getting a good hook rate, that might be a place where you want to start testing first. If you are getting if you aren't getting good hook rate, that's where I would start. If you're looking at a static, you're not going to get these watch rates. So I like to look at click-through rates. So if your click-through rate for a static is less than 1%, I would focus on changing the headline. If the hook metrics look good on a video, then I would continue on a little bit later into the video. Okay. Before I get into the rest of that, what I want to say is this. I have seen recently people talking about not doing creative testing. I think that's crazy to not do, because you could actually have really great script writing, very great visuals, everything works. But if your hook just isn't there, like nobody's going to see any of that. But if you just change your hook and they got to the rest of the good parts, it could be a difference of many, many thousands of dollars in revenue. And I've seen it firsthand, changing the hook, doing all that stuff. So like, I really, really implore you to like learn these things and how does data actually help you with your creative decision. Let's say the hook is looking good. Let's go to the body of the video. So for the video, if the hook is looking good, then I look at the hold rate and the average view duration. You can start to identify when people are dropping off by looking at the average view duration. So let's say it's a 30-second ad and people are dropping off after 6 seconds. That means that the first 6 seconds, most people are watching, but that after that, that's where it's dropping off. So what I would do is re-watch the video and start to ask these questions. Did I fulfill on my expectation I set in the hook? Is there something confusing or boring within second number 3 to 6? Because if you have a good hook rate, but then people are dropping off and you don't have that great of a hold rate, what is happening that you were able to grab the attention of a viewer at the beginning, but you under delivered, right? A lot of times people are so focused that they over optimize for the hook that people don't even think about what's going to happen after the hook. So this data, this view data, can be really helpful to identify where maybe you could start to improve on the body of the ad. The key is actually to watch the ad back, right? So like you can't just be like, oh, they dropped off after 6 seconds, we should probably change that. It's like, okay, but like watch the ad again. So many people don't do that. Like this data isn't helpful if you aren't watching back the ad for what is being said, what is being shown in the ad. And like when people are, criticizing creative testing and all this stuff, it's because they're only looking at data and not actually looking at creative decision making. If you look at creative decision making, if you actually watch back your ad and you have data, you have the market saying, this is boring, change this, please. And you change it and it works. Like that is the best thing you can have, is pinpoint accuracy of feedback. And that's what this data is doing. It's giving you feedback. They're saying the first 3 seconds was great. After 3 seconds, boring as heck, or whatever. Rewatch your ad. It really helps. Okay. Now let's talk about conversion. All right. So like, let's say you've got good hook rate, a good hold metrics, and we look to the end. Are we getting clicks and conversions? So let's look at the CTR, as the cart, and ROAS, or whatever North Star metric you want to look at. Again, as I've said before, complexity of business, in platform versus attribution, yada, yada, yada. Decide, you know how you do your media buying, you know how you make your decisions, decide based on that. But essentially, look at your CTR, look at ads to cart, and then look at your North Star metric. You should be able to assess, does this ad help you hit your North Star metric, your target, whatever it is, yes or no? So if the ad is not getting clicks, so the CTR is like below 1%, but you've got good view metrics, good hook metrics, good hold metrics, that means that the ad is entertaining but not selling. And that means that you need to sell. So an ad optimized for retention but not for selling is not a good ad. If the CTR is low, then you need to think about what is happening in this ad. Again, rewatch it. That's not compelling people to take action. Okay. Very rarely it's because you said learn more, or the difference between buy now and learn more. Most likely it's how the overall ad is set up. So even if your hook is good, even if your hold is good, if you're not getting clicks, the ad ain't doing its job. Okay. Let's say that hook is good, hold is good, click through is good, but there's no conversion. That means life after the ad, aka your website, is, it could be you're not, the ad is great, but then the website is confusing or not optimized for sale. Like, I personally am not going to be talking a ton about, life after the ad, but there can be times where an ad could be really good, but it's not converting because of the website, not the ad itself. Okay. So sometimes you want to look at that. If you're like, wow, all these metrics are looking good, it's getting clicks, but it's not selling, what's happening? Maybe take a look at the website, or, where you're sending the traffic, etc. What I like to look at before I make that decision is like looking at ads to cart, because looking at ads to cart gives you a little signal of purchase intent. Like, people putting items in cart means that they're seriously considering the price and the purchase. Even if they don't execute right then, right there, it shows purchasing intent. At the end of the day, if you're getting good hook and hold rates, but not great click-through rates, or just not great conversions, yes, look at the website, but I would really just look back on the ad and be like, why is this ad not selling? Is there something that's not being said? Is there something that's like clearly like people are engaged by this, but if there was something that's missing that's not compelling them to take action, that is the question that I would try to figure out. Personally, most likely it's the ad not doing enough to build demand versus it being, oh, your website is like blah, 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 blah. Sure, the website, totally optimized for the website and the conversion there, yada, yada, yada. I'm not going to speak to that because most likely you could have a terrible website, but a phenomenal ad could still sell. Like your website can give you gains, it can give you that efficiency, but like your ad is the thing that does the true selling. So focus there. Okay. I gave you benchmarks on these ads and all stuff. Here is the thing. People love to flex these metrics and be like, look at my ad, it's so good. But there's always more to the story than meets the eye. And a customer journey is not linear. We know that. So here's a few things. Things to watch out for if, you're thinking like, oh my gosh, these metrics are balling out. Look at the ad placements first. If you see your hook rate like 50 plus, I have seen 50 plus hook rates that are good, but check ad placements, things like that. Also, so audience network placements can skew metrics. I think those are the placements that like force people to watch your ad so they can like play their video game. So when you see great metrics, dig a little deeper to get a full picture. So sometimes it could be that. Sometimes though, you have a high hook rate, but you end up attracting the wrong cohort of customers. You might have gained someone's attention, but at what cost? So this is something to think about. Like people over like index on data that they forget about what is being said, what is being shown, right? So did you say something so shocking to get people's attention that instead of attracting the 40-year-old man for the brand that you've built, like that the brand is built for, instead you have 18-year-old boys watching, right? You could have high retention metrics, but low conversion. Maybe you focus too much on attention, but never sold the product. And to top it off, the ad could be great, but if the website experience is not good, the ad doesn't convert. Is it the ad's fault? Instead of focusing on improving what happens after the ad, you blame the ad for not selling. And so then you change a really good ad because the ROAS wasn't good, it didn't hit the metrics, but like actually, it could have been the website's fault, right? So there's so many things. This is what makes it so hard. There's so many things that this data can like play into. Here's the core principle though. Metrics can be a guide to help creative understanding and ad creation. It's a guide. It's not a Bible. It's not law. It's a guide. The customer journey is not linear, and every brand has unique rules to their account or things that they're looking for. Every brand has different goals. So even all these benchmarks and things that I'm talking about, those are ideas, those are guidelines, right? But you need to look at your account and look directly at what you need for your brand. I'll say this. Here's a story. We work with one brand. They're so niche that we know that the hook rates will be low. We actually want them to be low, like 15%, 19%. But the goal is the very high retention on the hold rate. So meaning like when we have a low hook rate but a high hold rate, we know we got the right audience to watch. The consideration window is a lot longer for them. And so like we know like the impact lag is like 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out. And so we don't turn ads off right away because we need that time. And so it's like, if I were to be like, oh, well, it's 19%, like we got to change that ad now. It's like, no, that ad is cooking. It's amazing. It's actually great that it's 19% because we're looking at the hold rate and we got a 35% hold rate. The people that are watching to the end. They are adding that to the cart. They're planning their purchase. It's a big purchase, it's a big project, all this stuff. That's awesome. So that's an example where everything I just told you could be broken in that sense, right? So every brand has its differences. There are other brands that we've worked with that are mainly on Facebook, or sorry, on Amazon. So the Facebook ads metrics might look lower, but then Amazon is up 30%, right? So like the Facebook ads like metrics look good, like, oh, hook rate's good, hold rate's good, but then you're like, the ROAS is so low. But then you like look on their Amazon, they're like, yo, we're balling out. And then when they turn off Facebook, then their Amazon dips, right? So it's like data could be complex, it could be tricky. I get it. But honestly, you can use data as a guide to help you with your decision making. I know it's not, you can't get the most perfect data, all stuff, but you can get it as a guide. Unfortunately, I kind of have to be a little bit prod here to kind of speak to kind of many types of brands and businesses. So this is general guidance, but please do this. And this is what I like about this medium of podcasting is that I feel like when I talk on Twitter, things can be like misconstrued as like, oh, you always have to do it this way, or like the hook rate always has to be above 30% or something stupid. And like, there's so much nuance. And so hopefully you can understand that there's nuance here. What I want to leave you with, which is kind of a little bit of an ode to next week, which we'll get into, which is the scientific method. So in grade school, in science class, you're taught the scientific method. Step 1, define a question. Step 2, gather information and resources. Step 3, form an explanatory hypothesis. Step 4, test that hypothesis by performing an experiment and collecting data. Step 5, analyze the data. Step 6, interpret the data and draw conclusions that serve as a starting point for a new hypothesis. Publish those results, retest them, right? The same is true for advertising. Claude Hopkins, the grandfather of advertising, he wrote a book called Scientific Advertising. You get data back, and now it's time to go back to step 1. So, in the last 4 episodes, we've talked about ideation, production, editing and post-production, and now we've talked about data. And then guess what? The beautiful thing is that once you get this data back and you come up and you see how your results are, did the market like it? Did they not like it? You get to then go back to step 1, go back to ideation and get better. The beautiful thing is that we have the ability to get data to give us the truth, which is the market gets to tell us if these ads are great or not. They vote with their wallet. And we get to get that feedback, and that feedback loop allows us to build a great content engine. And over time, as we get better and better, more efficient, that is where we're going to be able to find true performance, and it's going to be awesome. You can take all of this and do it yourself. Next week, I'm going to drop in a little, or next episode, I'm going to just go a little bit more deeper on the scientific method here. But you get the point. This is how we set up the ads report. This is how we're looking at certain things. Let me know if this was helpful. This is another episode of In the Cutting Room. You can follow me at Matthew Gattosi on Twitter. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. What are some of your ad data points that you're looking at? How do you look at it? Do you disagree with me? Like, are you not doing this? I'd love to have that conversation as well. So I want to know how you are doing this. This is just one way of doing creative strategy, one way of looking at data. I've seen many other ways. I've seen a lot of other things in terms of data points. I like to keep my data points simple so that we, aren't going too crazy on data collection and focus more on execution after we get the data. But I want to know, what are you looking at? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? This is the place to have nuance. So let me know. Hit me up. Thanks for watching or listening to another episode of In the Cutting Room. That's it. Bye-bye. Peace.